Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to my channel for another Hot Toys Star Wars 1/6 scale figure unboxing and review. Today, we're taking a look at Cad Bane, based off his brief yet memorable appearance in the Book of Boba Fett. Also, I sprung for the deluxe version. I had to get Toto 360. Now, I got mine from toyswonderland.com. Link for that is in the description below. They have pay in 4 and a loyalty program. While you're down there, why not hit that subscribe, bell notification icon, and join button so you're notified as soon as a brand new Hot Toys review goes live on the channel. As for the box art, this box is quite tall. Taller than usual at least, and I'm pretty curious to unpack this and find out why. I know Cad Bane is tall. Still, they have managed to put bigger figures in normal size boxes before and keep everything consistent. There must be a reason why they've gone for this longer one. Now, it doesn't really matter, of course, we only care about the figure inside. Unless you display your boxes, then you do want everything to be consistent, so something to be aware of. Front and center, Cad Bane and Toto 360. Star Wars in a metallic foil print. Down below on the Book of Boba Fett colored banner in yellow, that signifies the particular show this figure is from, another image of Cad Bane and Boba's palace. Plus another Star Wars logo and his name. On the side, grey, black, Cad Bane, Toto 360, and yes, these are the actual figures inside. Round the back, this is the boring stuff you usually skip to get right to the figures, but for the sake of the review, Cad Bane, Hot Toys, store locations, phone numbers, warnings, legal information, the usual suspects. I've said it before, and I'll say it again, I'll go on record in fact, these images on the inside of the Star Wars figures boxes, they need to be the front cover images. They are so much nicer than the black and grey triangle thing with just an image of the figure in the middle. You have Cad Bane and Toto 360 mid-action, one blaster drawn, one about to be. Moist evaporator in the background, this is quite clearly Tatooine. And down below, Star Wars and his name once more. That's why the box is so big. Cad Bane is huge. He takes up almost the entire clam tray, just the figure himself. Not to mention Toto 360 has a pretty decent amount of real estate given to him up top. First in-hand impressions for Cad Bane, he is currently wearing his hat and a plastic bag over his head sculpt. So far so good, I'm loving the look and feel of this figure in hand. What we are going to do now though, is get all of their accessories, Toto 360 is a character after all, laid out in the light box, and take a closer look at everything they come with. For the sake of simplicity, I have popped all of the deluxe accessories in front of Toto, and that includes Toto, so on the right side of the screen. All of the standard accessories are in the middle and on the left side. Unfortunately, we do have to talk about the display base, and it's terrible. This is just a whole mess of bad ideas all rolled into one compact display base package. Up top, we have the footprints, they are back. It's sculpted into the surface, which means you have to put his feet in these pre-posed positions, these predetermined spots, or it just doesn't make sense. And the footprints, they're not even the right shape for Cad Bane's boots. We'll discuss that a little bit later. I do like the texture on the surface and the undulations of the sand because this is sculpted, it's not just printed, it's three-dimensional. If you like that, then that's here. And it's painted well. They've added this speckling over the top that almost looks like soot or embers, as though something's blown up and the embers have floated down onto the sands of Tatooine. Up top, you do have a flight pole with a spring-loaded waist clamp. It doesn't need to be the only option. This display base is compatible with a crotch grabber. I would have liked to have seen both options. 99% of the time, I don't think people are going to be displaying him mid-flight. Around the front, Star Wars Cad Bane on an etched nameplate. I'm sorry, I shouldn't assume. If you're getting the deluxe version that specifically comes with the rocket thrusters, maybe you are going to have him mid-flight all the time. So I take that one back. Everything else that I said about the display base, it all stands. I loathe that thing. The hat is just okay. It's this very cheap, lightweight feeling plastic, and it's flocked. Whenever a company flocks something, usually Funko Pop with their special edition pops and some cheap little animals that you can get in $2 shops, it just cheapens the overall feel. The same goes for this hat. The panels are nicely painted with speckling on the surface. This pleather strap adds a nice breakup between the brown of the top part and the brim of the hat. It's not particularly straight or cut well though. Now that I'm seeing Toto 360, kind of reminds me that we don't have an accurate Clone Wars hat. This guy was not in Book of Boba Fett. They totally could have thrown in a massive Clone Wars style hat with the deluxe version of Cad Bane. This particular flame effect is my favorite flamethrower effect that Hot Toys makes. The other one, the rounded Cheeto one, that one's just okay. This one's just so much more believable. It looks like a real flame with these little licks of fire up the top here. Yeah, I love that. It clips onto the gauntlet. It's translucent blue. Down below, it looks like a tornado as the fuel would be shot out of the gauntlet and ignited. Then it's purple translucent plastic, yellow, orange, and very fiery orange for the main body of the flame. When the light hits this thing, because it's so optically clear, it looks like it's glowing. And if you light this correctly on Cad Bane, it should cast a colored glow onto his outfit. So for figure photography, yeah, it'll look great. I did try and do some research into what type of blasters Cad Bane used in the Book of Boba Fett. I came up blank. In the Clone Wars, he used LL-30s or LL-80s, but in the Book of Boba Fett, they just resorted to calling these Cad Bane's blaster pistols. If you know what these are, let me know in the comments down below. We do get two of them. The sculpt is the same across both. The scope is a little bit glossy front and back. You also have silver dry brushing on all the raised edges. The main barrel, which is a hexagon, is done in silver, with a wash over the top to dull it down. Then for the wooden handles, painted in brown, with some dirt and grime on the surface to make them look more weathered. Now, it's not actual wood, they are of course all sculpted out of plastic. No moving parts, they're just solid pieces. We'll be discussing all three faceplates in a lot more detail on Cad Bane. They're not full head sculpts, they are literally faceplates. They've got some pegs and a magnet around the back. We've got three completely different expressions, one mid-sentence, one more stoic and neutral, and the other straight up pissed off. My favorite little attention to detail is there's a touch of orange shading in the middle of his eyes, just to add more depth there. Deluxe accessory time. Toto 360 could either be counted as an accessory or as another figure because he comes with his own display base. It's got an articulated flagpole arm and a ball joint where it connects up to him. And he's got his own swap out pieces, some little thrusters and some swap out legs. We'll be talking about him when we talk about Cad Bane. I'm treating him more as a figure and less so as an accessory. Hashtag justice for Toto. He does come with some alternate legs like I just mentioned on ball joints, and these teeny tiny little flame effects. They are microscopic, and I can't wait to plug them onto his feet and see what that looks like. Also part of the deluxe set, we get some rocket thrusters for Cad Bane's boots. We'll plug these onto him. They do have some blast effects down below. They're done in translucent plastic with some blue shading up the top. They're brand new for Cad Bane. I don't think we've ever seen these small blast effects before. The actual rocket thrusters, sculpt work is sharp and they're off at an angle so they don't burn his ankles on his boots. There's some leather grain textures sculpted into the brown sections and washers in all of that sculpt work. And lastly, 2 trigger finger hands, and 2 closed fists, and 2 relaxed open palm hands already installed on him. They look suitably alien with the bulbous fingers and the sculpt work on the tips of the fingers. It almost looks like when you've been in the bathtub too long and your fingers get all wrinkly. Yeah, kinda nasty. The gloves have this leather grain texture on the back of them, some wrinkles and folds, and some lighter reddish brown dry brushing. What we are going to do now, though, is get Cad Bane and Toto 360 themselves out here. Standing straight up and down in the light box, no crazy poses or accessories or anything like that. Cad Bane and Toto 360. Couldn't forget about little Toto. Cad Bane will start off with him first. Very impressive. He's very tall, he's quite lanky, and the proportions, they look alien enough. At the same time, they're spot on to the live action appearance from Book of Boba Fett. The outfit hugs the body in all the right places, it's perfectly tailored. And the head sculpts, all 3 of them, oh, there are a lot of good things to say about them, and I bet we will. As for Toto, he's a little dude, but he has a ton of personality. I've always loved this little droid, and I'm so happy to finally have him in 1/6 scale. Close and personal, kicking things off with Cad Bane's head sculpt. This head sculpt, all three faceplates in fact, they're perfect. Perfect. Everything down to the last minute details. Thank you, Homelander. Seriously though, they are that good. The skin texture, the wrinkling, the scarring above his lip, the furrowed brow up top, even the bald cap thing with the breathing apparatus. I've got no complaints. And then the paint applications on top of that crazy sculpt work, impeccable. Hot Toys, you killed it. No question, this is Cad Bane 100%. They've even added some speckling up top on this panel, some silver around the edge to make it look a little bit more metallic. These hoses are wired, we'll get to that in just a second. And you do have multiple different faceplates to choose from. This is just the first one. When you've got Cad Bane looking like this, you know you've effed up. Dude is pissed. His eyes are a little bit more squinted, still super red and vibrant and glossy. His teeth are very sharp and prickly looking, individually sculpted. They're not just one smooth piece. You can see the separation between them. We've even got a tongue in his mouth that looks wet and glossy. The skin, beautifully textured. You've got some more scarring on his nose hump, if you will. Lighter blue, darker blue washes in the crevices. And when you pop the hat back on, that just completes the look. Yeah, I am tempted to display him with this faceplate in the collection. Nah, this is the one. With Crosshair's toothpick, because yes, once again, the teeth are individually sculpted, there are gaps between them. You can shove that toothpick right on in there and add to the Western cowboy feel. In my display, this is the faceplate he's wearing. It's still got a ton of personality, he's saying something badass with his mouth only slightly open, and one eye is a little bit bigger than the other. With some head tilt, oh, this is the shit right here. Coupled with the hat, when you angle the head sculpt forward so the brim is obscuring his eyes, it makes him look like even more of a badass. I'm already enamored with this figure and we've only just gotten stuck into the meat of the review. Initially, I was worried that the breathing apparatus would limit posability. It doesn't. It's attached with a Velcro. If you want to, you can just detach it and leave it free floating. It's around the back. The only thing that you're really going to see are the hoses, and they're wired. So if you want to shape them in a specific way, totally doable. If you want to have this thing planted around the back instead of free floating, well, that's what it's designed to do. It's perfectly fine. Either way, it's an option. I particularly like this canister down below. Not exactly sure what that's full of, but it looks like it's full of some kind of liquid. You do have to install this antenna, and it does feel a little bit fragile. You do just wedge it in there with friction, and it should sit in place securely. Just take your time, don't force it, and apply the pressure down the bottom, not at the top of the antenna. I did very quickly want to show you how easy it is to switch out the faceplates. I can't believe I gushed about how good they are. They just seriously are that darn beautiful. I cannot get over them. As you can see, it was very easy to do. In fact, you just slide them off, they're held in place with magnets and two little pegs, and they sit there super seamlessly. There is a little bit of a gap around the edge. That just makes it look like he's wearing this bald cap over a proper head sculpt. Having a little bit of depth around the edge, that's never a bad thing. They have sculpted the bald cap of sorts all the way down with some line work working its way underneath the outfit, as though it would continue underneath what he's wearing, like he's got some kind of scuba or wetsuit on under there. Initially, when people first saw the blogger pics for Cad Bane, they were a little bit disappointed with the weathering. And understandably so, it didn't look like there was any in the blogger pics. That might have been harsh lighting, it might just not come across well on camera, who knows. In person, it does come across well. There is weathering. You've got some lighter brown right here, some darker washes around the seams for some soiling. Down below, this is quite weathered in fact. The pants have a subtle weathering pass over the top. And even this shirt, it does have a little bit of dirt and grime. Not a lot, it's not overdone. I'd say they kept it classy. The jacket is made of this lightweight fabric. It is lined. These pockets are real, by the way. If you want to pop something in there, you totally can. And up the top for the collar, got these little greebly pieces. Not sure what they are, but they are accurate and they are supposed to be there, plus they're painted well. One of my favorite details on the coat is this herringbone pattern. It gives it just a little bit more visual interest. Underneath the jacket, the vest also has a little bit of texture on the surface, and these little panels, with pops of red and the bright silver one down below, the pocket being asymmetrical on one side but not the other, all of that, it does add to the visual interest. I don't want to keep saying visual interest, but it's super important. If it didn't have that, this guy would look super boring. He's a blue alien wearing a brown cowboy outfit. This could have gone so wrong. Thank goodness it didn't. He does have a bullet belt on. It's made of pleather. Each of these bullets are removable. If you want to make it look like Cad Bane has used some of his spareys on his belt, just slide one out. Someone told me that these gauntlets, they were scavenged from a Mandalorian. And that just adds to the cool factor here. Having some Mandalorian tech on Cad Bane, oh yes, I don't mind if I do. The blue, super striking, a little bit darker in color than his skin tone, so it contrasts. Got some pops of white, red, gold, and silver. The metallics are quite shiny, and they're an asymmetrical design. This one has a translucent hose with a copper wire in it. Yes, it is bendable, because that's a real wire. Whereas on this side, this hose, it's actually ribbed. And it looks like it would go all the way up his arm. It doesn't. It ends right around here. It's just a little faux hose. So for posing, I don't think it's going to be an issue at all. You can still get the maximum bend. Speaking of posing, Cad Bane wields his flamethrower effect like a boss. He's got a full fabric outfit and great articulation, so nothing gets in the way of bringing the arm up perpendicular to the body. In fact, it goes even higher if you want it to. It snaps onto the gauntlet in the same way as all of the Mandos that have come with this exact same effect. I'm pretty sure Boba Fett was the last one to have this particular flame going up like this. And it doesn't line up with anything. There's no nozzle or port, at least according to the instructions. This is where they want you to connect it. On the underside, you do have a couple of nozzles. You could always move it down there if you so choose. This belt does have two straps that connect to his holsters. They're also connected to his thighs, made of pleather. The belt buckle is plastic. It is shiny and metallic with speckling on the surface. Fine with that. There's another buckle around the side. But installing the pistols into the holsters is very challenging. Just take your time and don't put too much pressure on these thin areas, such as this little trigger and where the scope is connected to the pistol. You are supposed to have the scope poke through this top hole and the barrel stick out the bottom. This pleather material is very rigid, so trying to insert this in there without finagling it and futzing a little bit is a challenge. Like I said, take your time, you'll be perfectly fine. His pants being a lot darker than the shirt and the jacket, there is a mix of colors at play here. That is never a bad thing. They're full fabric, you've got this herringbone weave on the surface, just like his jacket does, but a little bit more subdued due to the darker color. And down here for the boots, the sculpt work is off the charts good. You've got grain, you've got this piece that looks like it's connected to a buckle, some bullets or canisters of some kind around the top of the boot, a steel cap, of course, you have to have that for some cowboy-style boots. And on the underside, some fully sculpted tread with some very impressive line work. If you get the deluxe version of Cad Bane, which I wholeheartedly recommend you do because you want Toto and the rocket thrusters surely, to install the rocket thrusters, it's not as easy as you might think. The first thing you want to do is remove these canisters, then bringing in one of the thrusters. It is on a mushroom peg and the boot is a softer rubber. So that means you are going to constantly be fighting it to install it. I would grab it around the edge, try and force this front section out a little bit, and that way you can angle this jet in and then you can wedge it in position. Once you do have it connected up securely, then I don't think it's going anywhere, and it looks nice and seamless too. Dude, this is a sick display option. The jets on both sides, oh hell yes. Now, you will run into a challenge if you want to have him standing wearing them, because the blast effects, they do sit down a little bit lower than his boots. Not a huge issue, just remove them. Then you can have the jets, or the thrusters if you will, permanently attached to his boots. I'm totally doing this. Believe it or not, this is not the first 1/6 scale Cad Bane. Back in the day, as part of Sideshow's Clone Wars line, we got a Cad Bane in Denal disguise. He'd killed Denal, a clone trooper. He then popped on his armor. How he wore that helmet, I will never know. But that's the figure that Sideshow gave us. And this is the head sculpt it came with. Compared to the Hot Toys version, it's a completely different color and a completely different shape. The top of the head is a lot wider, his mouth sits a lot lower, and the nose hump is gone. It's significantly flatter. The eyes also quite a lot bigger with the Sideshow one. If you're wondering if this head sculpt can go on the Hot Toys body, unfortunately, no. The Hot Toys one has a fixed neck, whereas the Sideshow one doesn't. It's a ball joint underneath the head sculpt. You would need to fashion yourself a different neck and then maybe, yeah, okay, you'd be able to pop it on the Hot Toys body. As it stands, stock, you can't. Before we move on, Toto 360 time. This guy I really like. His head is huge, there's a logo on one side, there's dry brushing, there's dirt and grime everywhere, he's been through it, he's quite filthy. His eyes are a nice yellow which do pop against the gunmetal for his body. His body is very weird looking, but it's accurate, it's supposed to look like this. He also has multiple different ball joints, which we'll talk about in the articulation segment. And you can install some thrusters on the underside of his feet. So if you want to have Cad Bane with his jet boots on, so he's flying, and Toto flying next to him, totally doable. These teeny tiny little flames, they're so cute and nicely painted. There's even some blue shading up the top. Don't forget, Toto 360 does have one more feature. That's his wheel foot mode. You do have some separate legs on ball joints, then you take off his feet, install them on these, plug them in, and now he's got a wheel at the bottom, which does make him impossible to stand, so you will have to use the included display base. I'm not going to display my Toto like this. It is an option that you can potentially try once, then put him back, or you can have him like this. Who's to say you don't like this? Just go for it. Now, I do want to stress that these hands, they are so freaking tiny, and that plastic is very thin. I've already broken this hand on mine. He toppled over, this hand snapped off because these arms, they're just the brittlest plastic ever. I would have loved if they were made of metal. That means it would have felt more premium, and I probably wouldn't have had that issue where the hand broke off. I was able to glue it back, and luckily it's now sturdy enough that I can even pose the arm grabbing onto this hand. So don't be like me, be careful. For a quick side-by-side comparison, not quite the right Boba Fett, not the one from Book of Boba Fett because he's not out at the time of filming this Cad Bane review. This is the version, the re-armored Boba Fett from Mandalorian Season 2. He's significantly shorter than Cad Bane, and Boba is no slouch, he's a relatively tall dude. Cad Bane, he towers over Boba Fett. This pairing, I dig. I am actually going to use Cad Bane as my Clone Wars version of him. So next to Anakin comes close, Cad Bane is still taller. He had a couple run-ins, why the heck not? Ahsoka Tano, she's significantly shorter than Cad Bane. This guy's gonna be a showstopper. The more we do these comparisons, the more figures we see stacked up next to him, the more confident I am that this guy here is 100% going to grab your attention alongside all the other Star Wars figures. Now it's starting to make sense. This is why they've made the Clone Wars characters look more live action, versus going with the animation style, and then when the characters make the jump to live action like Cad Bane did, if they had gone with animation style figures, they wouldn't match. They would look like they're from two completely different worlds. Whereas these two, they look right at home alongside one another. Cad Bane, he did appear in the Bad Batch, and his outfit was a lot closer to his Book of Boba Fett appearance than what we saw in the Clone Wars. So this is also an option. Cad Bane with your Bad Batch figures? Yeah, it works. Cad Bane is too cool of a character to just kill off in Season 1 of Book of Boba Fett. He was a fan favorite, and I think he still is, so I'm hoping he is not dead. Toto 360, come to this dude's rescue, as you have done many times in the past. Because this matchup, Din Djarin versus Cad Bane, oh, I want to see that on the TV screen. Going over articulation, I'm hoping the hat doesn't fall off during this segment. If it does, oh well, we'll just pop it back on and continue on our way. Starting off with the head sculpt, looking forward to there, it's on a fixed neck with a ball joint at the bottom. Looking up to there, swivel and pivot side to side. These hoses, they are wired, like we discussed earlier, so you can shape them and they should get out of your way. The arms will go up to there, you have multiple layers to contend with, they still manage to get the job done. Going forward and back on soft ratchets, butterfly joint at the shoulder that hinges up and down. Swivel at the bicep, double bend at the elbow going just the full way, and underneath the gauntlet, a hinge and swivel for the wrist peg. The torso crunches forward and back, swivels and pivots more than I was expecting. The legs will go forward to there, they'll go out to there, swivel at the upper thigh, double bend at the knee on ratchets going past 90. Even though the boots aren't split cut boot designs, they don't need to be. They're nice and wide up the top. Having these canisters around the edge, that just helps Hot Toys widen out the top of the boot. So they go forward and back, you also get swivel, and plenty of ankle tilt. Is this necessary? No. Am I going to go over Toto's articulation? Hell yes I am, starting off with his head sculpt, it's on a ball joint. Looking forward and back, swivel and pivot side to side. His arms, also on ball joints, going up and down, forward and back, plus they act like a butterfly. Then for his legs, ball joints, going forward and back, plus out a little. Moving on to the 3 cool and 3 annoying things. The first annoying thing, I know what you're thinking, oh no they didn't. They did. They've used the sand footprint display base again. And with Cad Bane, it makes even less sense than usual. If you put his foot in the footprints, as you can see, the boot is larger than said footprints. It just makes no sense at all. Second annoying thing is his hat isn't fantastic. The shape is okay and it fits well, these side panels are nicely weathered so it's got some good things going for it, but it's flocked, and instantly when you flock something it makes it feel very, very cheap. Having this pleather strap around the edge and not cutting it straight and it sitting wonky, that doesn't help the aesthetic either. The third annoying thing, this is kind of a big one for me. I was totally expecting this long coat to be wired. It's not around the bottom, not around the front edge, not up the top for the collar, nothing on the jacket is wired. Which means for dynamic posing, you're either going to have to fake it or just let it drape naturally. The first cool thing, the boot rockets. When you remove them and you plug these little canisters back in, it's a completely seamless connection. If you weren't looking for the teeny gaps along the edge that look natural anyway because it sits in between the folds, you probably wouldn't spot it. Second cool thing, it's got to be Toto 360. The best part about getting him, he comes with his own flight stand, his own blast effects, some swap out legs, a decent level of articulation with ball joints everywhere, and he's beautifully painted. But that's not it. It's that when you get him in this set, it kind of makes it a 2-pack, and if there's one thing you'll know I love, it's 2-packs. The third cool thing, you get 3 different faceplates in total. And I wouldn't have an issue displaying any one of these faceplates. They're all full of detail, skin texture, they're beautifully painted with these glossy red eyes that give him so much life with that little glint, that reflectivity up top. Even this neutral expression, you can tell dude's a badass. He is cool, calm, and collected. Wrapping up on Cad Bane and Toto 360, the deluxe set. Get this figure. If you are a Star Wars fan, a Clone Wars fan, a Bad Batch fan, a Book of Boba Fett fan, you see where I'm going with this, a Cad Bane fan, this guy, he just fits into so many different areas of a Star Wars collection. He is super versatile. He can pose very well thanks to a full fabric outfit and double bends for knees and elbows, 3 different faceplates, full of life and personality. The sculpt work, the paint applications, it's all impeccable. I've already said that multiple times at this point. I'm just so happy. He isn't perfect. A couple of small things that they could have tweaked and changed to make him even better, yes, they do exist. Adding some wires to the coat for one. Number 2, ditching the pleather in favor of either real, genuine leather like they did for Crosshair, or going with sculpted plastic, some rubbery stuff. That could have worked as a viable option. They stuck with the pleather, and they went sans wires. It's not enough to ruin this figure for me. He still commands a shelf, and at the end of the day, that's all that matters. You want an accurate representation that's super high quality, which this guy is, and you want something that's going to stand out. A tall, lanky, alien blue cowboy with red eyes and a sick looking hat, plus his droid companion and rocket boots and a flamethrower? Well, dare I say, that might just fit the bill. This is a very strong release by Hot Toys, and if they keep on this trajectory of getting better and better with each consecutive figure in the Book of Boba Fett line, Fennec Shand was awesome, this guy is great, and I'm hoping that Boba Fett is just as good as those two, I reckon we're in for a treat with this line. Now, I got mine from toyswonderland.com. Link for that is in the description below. They have Pay in 4 and a loyalty program. While you're down there, why not hit that subscribe, bell notification icon, and join button if you like the sound of seeing your name in the end credits of my reviews. Like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next video.